The Suzuki GSV-R wasn't killed by poor engineering or lack of speed. It was abandoned by the very company that created it. This was one of MotoGP's greatest what-ifs, and the corporate decisions that left racing fans wondering what could have been. When MotoGP announced the seismic shift from 500cc two-stroke engines to 990cc four-strokes in 2002, the entire racing world had to reinvent itself overnight. Suzuki stood at a crossroads. They had just conquered the championship in 2000 with Kenny Roberts Jr. piloting their legendary RGV 500 two-stroke machine. But that victory belonged to a dying era. The transition from two-stroke to four-stroke technology wasn't just about changing engine configurations. It represented a fundamental reimagining of how MotoGP motorcycles would be designed, developed, and raced. Two-stroke engines were relatively simple, lightweight, and delivered power in a peaky, aggressive manner that rewarded brave throttle control. Four-stroke engines, by contrast, were heavier, more complex, required sophisticated fuel injection and valve control systems, and delivered power more smoothly across a broader RPM range. Every assumption about chassis design, weight distribution, aerodynamics, and rider technique had to be reconsidered. And here's where the problems began. That first-generation machine, codenamed XRE-0, was essentially a compromise built from spare parts and ambition. The engineering team faced an impossible task. They had to design an entirely new engine architecture while simultaneously adapting an existing chassis that was never meant to handle four-stroke power characteristics. The old RGV 500 designs were inspired for this. The result was predictable to anyone who understood motorcycle dynamics. The old chassis couldn't handle the power and weight distribution of the new four-stroke engine. Stability issues plagued the bike throughout that inaugural season. Riders crashed. Mechanical failures forced retirements. The XRE-0 felt like exactly what it was, a transitional machine caught between two eras. Yet somehow, against all odds, the GSV-R managed a third of the opening round in Suzuka and grabbed third at Rio as well. These weren't flukes or lucky breaks. They were genuine performances that demonstrated the underlying potential of Suzuki's engineering approach. Even with all its compromises and issues, the GSV-R could compete when everything came together. It was a glimpse of potential wrapped in chaos. Kenny Roberts Jr., the reigning champion, could only manage 9th overall by season's end. But Suzuki's engineers saw something everyone else missed. They saw what the GSV-R could become with proper development and support. The V4 engine configuration that Suzuki chose represented careful technical reasoning. A V4 offers an excellent balance between the compact packaging of an inline-4 and the superior primary balance of a V-twin. The configuration allows for a narrower engine that improves ground clearance for cornering, while the 4 cylinders provide smoother power delivery than a twin and better throttle response than a V-twin. Honda had proven the V4 concept dominant in the 500cc two-stroke era, and both Honda and Yamaha were exploring 4-cylinder configurations for the new 4-stroke regulations. Suzuki's decision to adopt a V4 architecture put them on theoretically equal footing with their rivals from a fundamental design perspective. For 2003, Suzuki returned with the XRE-1, featuring a redesigned 65-degree V4 engine instead of the original 60-degree configuration. This seemingly minor change had significant implications for engine packaging, crankshaft design, and chassis integration. The chassis finally matched the engine's capabilities with a proper twin-spar aluminum frame designed specifically for the 4-stroke powerplants characteristics. This was the GSV-R that should have started changing the conversation. Suzuki's technical team began pushing boundaries in ways that demonstrated their genuine engineering sophistication. They worked with Mitsubishi to develop custom ECUs tailored to each evolution of the engine. Modern racing engines are as much software as hardware. The engine control unit manages fuel injection timing, ignition timing, throttle response, traction control, engine braking characteristics, and dozens of other parameters that determine how the engine delivers power and how that power can be managed by the rider. A custom ECU designed specifically for the GSV-R's unique characteristics gave Suzuki's engineers the flexibility to optimize performance in ways that off-the-shelf electronics never could. But if Suzuki had all this technical brilliance, if their GSV-R could innovate around regulations and deliver advanced solutions that even Honda and Yamaha respected, why did it never dominate the championship the way everyone expected? Why did a bike with so much potential consistently finish mid-pack while its rivals collected trophies? Well, Suzuki's problem was never the motorcycle. It was the company's commitment to racing itself. The fundamental misunderstanding of what's required to compete successfully at the highest level of motorcycle racing. While Honda and Yamaha poured massive budgets into their MotoGP programs, treating racing as both a marketing platform and a technical laboratory that justified significant investment even during difficult financial periods, Suzuki approached it more cautiously. Racing was viewed as an expense to be managed rather than an investment to be maximized. Development budgets were consistently smaller, testing opportunities were fewer. The team often ran with components that were already a generation behind what the competition was fielding. And here's the truly shocking part. Suzuki frequently operated with only a single factory team, and sometimes just one factory rider, severely limiting the data and feedback they could gather compared to rivals running multiple teams with multiple riders across multiple configurations. Think about what that means in practical terms. Honda and Yamaha could test different setups simultaneously, gather data from multiple world-class riders with different riding styles and preferences, and iterate their designs at lightning speed. If a chassis modification worked for one rider but not another, they had immediate feedback about why and could adjust accordingly. If an engine mapping showed promise in one configuration, they could test variations across multiple bikes in the same weekend. Data accumulation happened exponentially faster, with more bikes and riders generating information. Suzuki, meanwhile, had to make educated guesses with limited information, then wait for race weekends to see if those guesses paid off. If a development direction proved wrong, they had wasted weeks or months of development time and potentially the budget allocation for that development cycle. With limited resources, every wrong turn was magnified. Every missed opportunity hurt more. The compounding effect of these limitations meant that even when Suzuki's engineers made correct decisions, they were often implementing solutions that Honda and Yamaha had already discovered and moved beyond. The testing disadvantage was particularly brutal. Official MotoGP testing is limited by regulations, but the amount of data you can gather during those limited sessions depends entirely on how many bikes and riders you field. A single bike can test one configuration, two bikes can test two configurations or provide comparative data on the same configuration with different riders. More importantly, a well-funded program can afford extensive private testing at tracks around the world between official sessions, using test riders to evaluate components and configurations before precious track time with factory riders during race weekends. Suzuki couldn't match this level of activity, so their development cycle was always playing catch-up. Then came 2007, and MotoGP dropped another regulatory bombshell. Maximum displacement would drop from 990 cubic centimeters to 800 cubic centimeters. The official reasoning focused on safety concerns, as 990 cubic centimeter bikes had become exceptionally powerful and fast. Corner speeds and straight-line velocities had increased to the point where some tracks were becoming dangerous. By reducing displacement, the governing body hoped to reduce power and therefore speeds to more manageable levels. Every manufacturer had to redesign their engines from scratch. You couldn't simply bore and stroke an existing 990 cubic centimeter engine down to 800 cubic centimeters and expect competitive results. The entire engine architecture, from cylinder head design to crankshaft configuration to exhaust system tuning, had to be reconsidered for the new displacement. For well-funded teams with extensive design and testing resources, this was actually an opportunity, a chance to implement lessons learned from 5 years of 990 cubic centimeter development into a clean sheet design. For Suzuki, it was another mountain to climb with inadequate equipment and support. The GSV-R 800, codenamed XRG0, represented Suzuki's engineering team working miracles with limited resources. They redesigned the bore, stroke, and cylinder pitch to optimize the smaller displacement. These aren't trivial changes. Bore and stroke ratios fundamentally determine an engine's power characteristics. A larger bore with shorter stroke creates an over-square engine that revs higher and produces peak power at higher RPMs. A smaller bore with longer stroke creates an under-square engine that generates more torque at lower RPMs. The cylinder pitch, the distance between cylinder centers, affects engine width, which influences chassis design and the bike's overall center of gravity. The goal was to achieve the best possible horsepower and reliable high RPM operation, while providing riders with user-friendly power delivery and predictable engine character. That last part is crucial and often misunderstood by fans who focus only on peak horsepower numbers. A MotoGP bike with 250 horsepower that delivers power in an unpredictable, aggressive manner is slower than a bike with 240 horsepower that delivers power smoothly and predictably. Rider confidence comes from knowing exactly how the engine will respond to throttle inputs, especially when leaned over at extreme angles, while managing traction at the limit. The result? An engine capable of producing 210 horsepower at 17,500 RPM, packaged in a refined chassis with updated fairings for high-speed stability. That power figure was competitive with anything Honda or Yamaha fielded. The XRG0 proved that Suzuki's engineers could meet the technical challenge when given a clear target and the resources to hit it. The chassis layout and wheelbase length from the 2006 GSV-R XRE4 remained on the new model, a decision that reflected both engineering wisdom and budget constraints. The 2006 chassis had been well developed and received positive feedback from riders. Rather than starting from scratch, which would have consumed time and resources, Suzuki adapted the proven chassis to work with the new engine. The fairing design had been updated to better accommodate high-speed stability, addressing one of the persistent issues that had plagued earlier GSV-R iterations. For 2008, Suzuki unveiled the XRG1, which they proudly declared was the most complex and technically advanced racing motorcycle Suzuki had ever produced. Notice that phrasing: not the most successful, not the fastest, the most complex and technically advanced. That distinction tells you everything about the GSV-R's legacy. Technical sophistication without the development support to fully exploit it. The XRG1 benefited from close development with riders Chris Vermeulen and Loris Capirossi. Both were experienced, fast riders capable of providing detailed technical feedback. Vermeulen, in particular, had a reputation as an excellent development rider who could articulate exactly what the bike was doing and what it needed. The engineering team focused intensely on improving acceleration by refining every detail of the previous year's engine and updating the Mitsubishi ECU. The results delivered lower fuel consumption, increased usability, better cornering performance, and enhanced handling characteristics thanks to newly designed fairings. On paper, Suzuki had built a world beater. The specifications matched or exceeded competitor bikes. The technical sophistication was undeniable. The rider feedback was positive. In reality, they had built a machine that could occasionally challenge for podiums, but rarely threaten for championships. And the reason why comes down to one brutal truth: consistency requires resources, and resources require corporate commitment. A single breakthrough weekend means nothing if you can't replicate that performance race after race, track after track, season after season. But given that Suzuki had proven they could innovate and compete at the highest level, given that their riders praised the GSV-R's potential even when results didn't show it, and given that they had invested nearly a decade into developing this platform, accumulating institutional knowledge and technical expertise that should have been paying increasing dividends, why would Suzuki suddenly pull the plug entirely? Pause. What happened behind closed boardroom doors that convinced a company to abandon a project that was finally approaching competitive maturity? When the 2008 global financial crisis hit, corporate priorities shifted overnight across every industry and every company. Suzuki wasn't just a motorcycle racing company or even just a motorcycle manufacturer. They were an automotive manufacturer dealing with plummeting sales across both their car and motorcycle divisions, stricter emissions regulations that required massive investment in cleaner engine technology, and the emerging realization that electric vehicles represented the future and would require enormous research and development spending to remain competitive. Racing budgets, especially for a program that wasn't delivering championship results or generating positive headlines became an easy target for cost-cutting executives looking to preserve cash and redirect resources toward what they perceived as more critical business needs. The logic was cold but understandable from a pure business perspective. MotoGP racing consumed millions of dollars annually. That money could instead fund development of more fuel-efficient engines, hybrid technology, or electric vehicle research. From a spreadsheet perspective, cutting racing made perfect sense. But this perspective ignores the intangible benefits of racing programs. The technical knowledge gained from developing engines that operate at the absolute limit of mechanical possibility. The prestige and marketing value of competing at the highest level of motorcycle racing. The inspiration that racing success provides to engineers, dealers, and customers. The way that racing programs attract and retain top engineering talent who want to work on cutting-edge projects. None of these benefits appear on quarterly financial statements, so they get discounted or ignored entirely by executives focused on a short-term financial metrics. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. In 2011, Suzuki didn't just reduce their MotoGP budget or scale back their ambitions to a single bike operation. They quit entirely. Pulled out completely, citing the need to reduce costs amid the global economic downturn. The decision blindsided the racing world, team personnel, and even Suzuki's own marketing departments, who suddenly had to explain why the company was abandoning its most visible motorsport platform. Imagine being an engineer who had spent years developing the GSV-R, constantly fighting for resources, constantly being told to do more with less, constantly watching your competitors field 3 or 4 bikes while you struggled with 1 or 2, constantly proving your technical capabilities through innovations like mechanical variable valve timing and pneumatic valve systems, constantly receiving positive feedback from riders about the bike's potential, and finally building a machine that was genuinely competitive when everything came together. Then imagine being told your entire program is being shut down, not because you failed, but because racing simply wasn't a corporate priority anymore. Not because the bike wasn't fast enough, but because the spreadsheet didn't justify the expense. Suzuki did eventually return to MotoGP in 2015, but they retired the GSV-R designation entirely, replacing it with the GSX-R. That decision felt deeply symbolic. The GSV-R represented an era of unfulfilled potential, of constant struggle against inadequate resources, of technical achievement that never translated into championship success. Starting fresh with a new name was probably psychologically easier than confronting what the old one had become. A reminder of what might have been if only the company had committed fully to the program. Riders who piloted the GSV-R consistently praised its potential while lamenting its inconsistency. Chris Vermeulen, Loris Capirossi, and other riders who spent time on the bike all told similar stories. When everything worked, when the setup was right and the bike came together, the GSV-R could run with anything on the grid. But achieving that sweet spot required perfect conditions and often couldn't be replicated consistently. That combination of complements tells the real story. The foundation was strong, the engineering was sound. But racing at the highest level requires more than a good foundation. It requires constant refinement, endless testing, and the resources to chase marginal gains across every component and system. Suzuki simply never provided those resources consistently enough for the GSV-R to achieve its potential. So if you were running Suzuki's program in 2011, would you have pulled out like they did or found a way to stay and fight? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe for more racing stories.